All right. Good morning, everyone. Pastor Matt here. I'm glad you're here for our worship ramp up. Gosh, it's about 8:15. It's hard to believe. So, for us, in about 45 minutes, we're going to be starting our small group hour, and then at 10:30, we're going to be meeting for our worship gathering. And I always look forward to Sundays. Can't wait for Sundays. But our Christian walk is more than just Sundays. We actually live Monday through Saturday as well. And one of the things that always seems to come up is, how do we handle disappointments that may come across our lives? I think from some corners, if you have those disappointments and you have those times where are let down by people, or you let yourself down, or, events don't transpire the way that you are hoping that they would transpire, well, then sometimes we can come across as if life's not fair, or God's let us down, or that there's really no use to it because, frankly, we've become so self-centered, and we may have even bought a theology that it's a theology, what we call a theology of glory, which means that the closer you get to Christ in this world, or the more you follow Christ, the better things are going to go. And frankly, that is just not so. I mean, there will be times when the more you try to follow Christ and you do the right thing, the more challenging things will go. But what do we do in here? What do we do in handling these disappointments that come our way? Because no matter how hard we try to insulate ourselves from difficult events, difficult people, difficult issues, letting ourselves down, those disappointments, because of the brokenness in our world and the sinfulness in our world and the sinfulness that's even in our own hearts, the brokenness that's even in our own hearts, things are going to come up that are just going to be like, why? What? Not this again. Oh, come on. So how do we handle this in a Christ-like way? Well, again, the first thing we have to do is we have to realize that this world is not going according to God's design right now. It's not going to how God originally set everything out to be, because of the sin that we brought into the world through Adam and now through us. Our brokenness and the brokenness that are found in all of these different systems are going to mean that things are not always going to go smoothly. And second of all, the plan that you may have for your life may not be what God is intending for your life. I'm looking at Romans chapter 8 and verses, just starting in verse 28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Now, where is this coming from? Well, this is coming from really in the vapor trail of verses 18 to 25. Is that this world is filled with suffering. This world is going to be filled with disappointments. You are not going to always live up to your own standard, much less live up to God's standard. So, of course, there's going to be suffering. There's going to be hardship. There's going to be tribulation and trials and disappointments that are going to come our way. And what can happen is those disappointments may arise just because we have a selfish outlook on our lives of what we want to have happen. Oh, I wish they would have acted this way. If they would have acted this way, I wouldn't have been disappointed. Oh, I wish that would have transpired the way I wish it would have. If it had, then I wouldn't be feeling the way that I am. And, everybody else just, and really what we're doing is we're just saying, everybody else, you got to conform to me. But there are times even when we try to do the right thing and disappointments happen. You try to care for people, and sometimes they'll stay, and sometimes in your life, and sometimes they'll go. So we've got to ask ourselves, okay, really what's happening? And if we're doing everything according to what God is calling us to do, that's not going to insulate us from disappointments. Those disappointments are going to happen. But God is doing something in us through those disappointments. In verse 28, again, God is working in the heart of the believer. God is working all things. And that not only means the victories, but that also means those disappointments and that suffering. God is working something in you for good. To those, it says, who love God and are called according to his purpose. Well, folks who are following Jesus, we're called. We're called out, the ecclesia, the church, the called out ones. And it says this, for those whom he foreknew, he predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. So what God is doing, as we are seeking him, as we are keeping our eyes focused on Christ and the path that he has for us, what God is doing is working something in us. It says, why? So that we might be conformed to the image of his Son. That we might be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And that golden chain that's there that we shouldn't shy away from, that those whom he foreknew, he also predestined, and those whom he predestined, he also called, and those whom he called, he justified, and those whom he justified, he also glorified. God's even working in you from before the foundation of the world, calling you to himself, calling you even before the world began, even before you did anything. God's calling you to himself to be a part of his kingdom, and he justifies you by taking away the guilt and the penalty of sin, and then he'll glorify you, taking you away from the presence of sin. See, as long as we're here, we're going to be in the presence of sin, we're going to be in the presence of suffering, we're going to be in the presence of brokenness and disappointments and hardships. But one day, that's not going to happen. So we've got to persevere and recognize that while we're here, and those disappointments may be coming, that suffering, that hardship is coming, God is working out his Son in us. That's what it says in Philippians 2. Work out your salvation, fear and trembling. Know that he's working something in you. Oh, so keep that in mind when those things happen. That God is bringing you closer and making you more like himself through everything that's going on. All things work together for good to those who love God and to those who are called according to his purpose. That's a foundational way of being able to handle disappointments in this life. We've got to remember that. All right? Lord willing, we'll see you at 10:31 Mountain Time, prayerfully in person, but we'll also be online as well. So if you're not able to make it, we hope that you'll be able to join us in that way. All right? God bless you all. Bye-bye.